Welcome to the SGS Academy webinar, Learning Reimagined series. This webinar will be focusing on Virtual Instructor Led Training. My name is Amanda Mangan and I am the SGS Academy Global Training Manager. I started with SGS in 2012 and have been with the company for approximately 8 years. I currently manage the global SGS Academy training portfolio, dealing with accredited and non-accredited training, research and development, design, delivery and business models. I've got over 25 years in HR, learning and development, training, recruitment and assessment, and over 10 years working in commercial global training within the TIC industry.
My name is Laura Underwood and I'm a Global Training Course Manager for SGS. I started with SGS in 2018 and have been with the company for 2.5 years. I currently manage the face-to-face and virtual instructor-led training portfolio. And I have over 10 years experience in the training industry as a technical trainer, training developer and teacher trainer.
Within the agenda today, we will talk through Learning Reimagined. What is Virtual Instructor-Led Training? Key considerations for Virtual Instructor-Led Training. SGS Lessons Learned, Best Practice and Recommendations, the VILT Mind Map, and the SGS Academy Solutions and Support. SGS is the world's leading testing, inspection and certification company with over 89,000 employees around the world in 2,600 offices, whilst covering 11 global industries that allows us to help you globally and locally. SGS offers a number of ways we can partner together, from certification, training, performance assessments, supply chain risk management, through to technical consulting. When you choose to partner with SGS, you'll be receiving what we call the SGS Difference, a mixture of industry expertise from global and local experts, a global network with offices spread over 80 countries, and a quality of service offering end-to-end compliance. Is training important? Training has always been one of the areas that is quick and easy to stop and shows immediate bottom-line cost benefit. The COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges it has brought to businesses has changed the way we live and learn, and will continue to do so for some time yet. However, planning of good remote training now will benefit businesses in the future from enhancing user confidence, staff morale and buy-in, through to commitment and ultimately increase of business productivity and performance. A small percentage of time and budget used to be allocated to digital methods, such as e-learning, virtual learning, or simply a recorded WebEx or Brainshark. As training is changing, we need to ensure that delivery and access to knowledge is a simple, relevant, and enjoyable experience for users. Training has always been perceived as a means to an end, but now it will be key to the future. The webinar series Learning Reimagined will talk you through the concepts of remote learning and key areas of consideration that needs to be included in your planning. The focus of this presentation is the delivery of virtual instructor-led training. This method has many considerations that need to be factored in. From assessing technology capability, effective delivery, resources, and competent facilitators through to the management and monitoring of training, both from a learner perspective, stakeholder requirements, return on investment, and any mandatory administrative governance. So, moving on to the future trends, I would just like to show some statistics that reflect the COVID-19 impact. Over 80% of learning and development professionals have had to change their L&D strategy and believe it is important to increase the use of digital learning. Prior to the pandemic, less than 20% of our SGS global offices offered any type of digital learning. This has now significantly changed, with 80 to 100% of our offices now offering Virtual Instructor Led Training as the standard form of delivery. SGS spend and resource allocation for digital learning has increased. This includes digital learning services, digital platforms, and digital learning content. However, cost recuperation as we move forward into 2021 will outweigh the initial outlay and ensure that we can still offer an excellent service that our customers expect and can easily access. Ongoing training costs for internal and external resources will decrease over time. This will be due to the increase in technology and associated automation this generates. We will then be able to continue to deliver a good learning experience to our learners at no significant extra cost. The use of technology will streamline business processes to reduce errors and delays, generating a more cost-effective approach for organisations. There will be an increasing demand for digital learning from top management and stakeholders through to individual employees and your learner end users. So, what can you do as an organisation? Those of you who have attended our previous webinar on the new normal for learning may recognise the 6 E's that SGS Academy work against when undertaking new projects and course development. It is important that you approach your training development and delivery holistically and consider all aspects of the learner's requirements as much as the actual training content itself. If you would like further information on this, you can download our recording, which is available on our website. By using the 6 E's, SGS Academy has implemented an effective digital system to enhance our offerings to our employees and clients. By digitising our courses, by offering these through Virtual Instructor Led Training, using online platforms such as Zoom and Adobe Connect. You will recognise the incorporation of these 6 E's in the creation and development of all our learning, and you will be able to identify these throughout the following information that Laura will be presenting. Here are the main learning methods that can be used as standalone training courses or as part of a blended solution. The methods need to be user-friendly with a clear learner journey and end result. There are, of course, pros and cons to any delivery method. This webinar is focused on Virtual Instructor-Led Training. We will be presenting further webinars focusing on e-learning and blended learning on future dates. I would now like to pass you over to Laura.
Thanks, Amanda. So the new normal for training has raised many barriers for us as a business and for our customers. We have been faced with significant challenges and have had to change our approach to training to overcome these and mitigate the potential risks to the organisation. Traditional classroom training was just not feasible in this new climate. Lockdown was happening across the globe, and our learners were not able to physically access classrooms in a safe and effective way. We had to find a way that our affiliates could continue to deliver training at a high standard for our customers, and the best way to move forward was to implement virtual instructor-led training. So we set about researching how to adapt our current offering of face-to-face courses into VILT, the Virtual Instructor-Led Training, and upskill our tutors to deliver virtually. VILT can be defined in a number of different ways. Here's our SGS definition. Training that is delivered in a virtual or simulated environment, or when the instructor and learner are in separate locations. Some different types of digital learning can include e-learning, so courses based on an LMS portal, which are accessed remotely at any time by the learner. Virtual instructor-led training, the physical tutor delivery via a remote online tool. Or blended learning, which can be a mix of any of these training methods, so e-learning, virtual instructor-led training, classroom-based training, with assignments, etc. We started our initial examination using the 6 E's, and we considered the following. We examined the impact of COVID on our training business, learners and tutors, and what we would have to change in order to mitigate those risks. Within your business, you may want to consider how your business has been impacted and what that means for your stakeholders with regards to accessing training. Can you continue to deliver training in your offices, or do you need to change to virtual instructor-led training? We explored digital learning options available, adapting the materials and requirements for our tutors, and also our stakeholder requirements. This included the different virtual instructor-led training platforms that were available to us and what would work best and suit our needs. The different ways to adapt the training materials for delivery and the requirements for our tutors. You may want to consider what virtual platforms suit your needs. Do you already use Microsoft Teams, Zoom or Adobe, and are they fit for purpose? Can your current training be adapted for virtual delivery, or are you going to have to redevelop them, or should you outsource your training? Do your tutors have the skills required to deliver virtually? And if not, how are you going to upskill them? Do you have the knowledge and skills to develop the training to upskill them? Or again, are you going to have to outsource this? We ensure that our learners are able to access the training. We ensure that by providing the learners with instructions on how to access, how to log in. We give them details of the software requirements and what they need to consider. Do our tutors have the equipment required to deliver that training? And again, within your business, you might want to consider how you provide support for your stakeholders and how they can access the training, what software and hardware they require. We transitioned to VILT training, enabling our tutors to deliver high quality virtual instructor-led training. What does that transition to VILT look like for us? So that looks like new materials, new processes and procedures and training, including our VILT delivery guidelines. You may want to consider the same. So firstly, consider all of the changes that are going to be required to transition into the new norm of virtual delivery, what this looks like, and what new processes and procedures need to be put in place to ensure that they work effectively. And also, who's responsible for each process? Secondly, set a timeline of what you want to implement and make actionable steps in order to achieve that. Lastly, monitor the progress of the transition to ensure that it's effectively implemented. We establish clear guidelines for our affiliates, learners and tutors to follow, and a whole new training portfolio. You might want to consider the same, so what support you're going to set out for your stakeholders and what that looks like. We evaluated learner feedback and how many learners are accessing VILT training, what our stakeholder requirements were, and what impact that had on the business. And within your business, you might want to consider reviewing your training. Is it working effectively? Are the learners learning what they should be? Is the feedback positive? And does it show evidence of effective virtual instructor-led training delivery? Is the training having a positive impact on the business? From the evaluation, we concluded that our three main areas for consideration would be identifying and overcoming barriers, adapting and implementing new course materials, and upskilling tutors to delivering a virtual learning environment. The first area we analysed was identifying the barriers to deliver virtually. Virtual learning presents new challenges compared to the traditional classroom. This is due to learners not being directly in front of the tutor, learners not being IT literate, potential IT issues and internet issues, and others. The barriers have been split into three main areas: so social, administrative, and motivational. Social barriers include feeling isolated, struggling to engage with the content and training session, and difficulty with communicating with other group members and the tutor. How can we overcome these barriers? We can look to include icebreaker activities or introduction activities, which start to make the learners feel part of a group. We can provide opportunities for learner interaction by using questioning and the interactive tools on the VILT platform. Learners then are more likely to take ownership of their own learning by completing these activities and sharing their ideas with their peers. Administrative barriers. So they include things like problems with logging into the VILT platform, not being able to use the tools. Can they hear the tutor? Can they turn the microphone on to engage with that session? How can we overcome these barriers? So we can look to establish contact, such as sending the link to the course prior to the course, along with instructions on how to use the platform. We can provide direction. The host can offer guidance on IT issues. We can provide feedback. So the tutor can provide feedback to each learner during the course so they feel valued and supported. Motivational barriers. So these can include engaging with long training sessions where the tutor delivers long, monotonous content without interacting with the learners, or distractions when accessing the training from home. So how can we overcome these barriers? So we can look to chunk content into smaller, bite-sized pieces of information which are easier to digest, enabling that content to be logical and structured. And we can use a variety of virtual tools which can enhance that learning environment. Some tools from the virtual platform can include polling, whiteboard, the use of the PowerPoint in a more interactive way, or videos, etc. The second area we analysed was adapting delivery. So we completed research and identified what works in the virtual environment to enhance that tutor delivery, and how can we engage our learners to maintain learner engagement and maintain that high quality delivery. From the research, we identified the following results: how to use the VILT tool to enhance the learning experience. We redeveloped our face-to-face courses into virtual instructor-led training. We did this by adapting our teaching and learning methodologies to suit the virtual learning environment. We use the VILT tools to enhance the learner experience by incorporating polling, Q&A, the breakout rooms for group activities, enabling more learner interaction. We created interactive training to maintain that learner engagement, and we chunked content into bite-sized learning. One key thing to remember is that learning engagement is viewed as the level of interest the learner shows towards the topic. Their interaction with the content, tutor, peers, and their motivation to learn and progress throughout that course is one of the most important things. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. If we can design and deliver learning which engages our learners in a way where they take ownership of their learning, they feel confident enough to interact with the activities and learning sessions, and they enjoy the virtual style of delivery, then we've succeeded in creating the high-quality virtual training sessions that we strive for. The final area we focused on was the upskilling of our tutors. So a successful virtual learning session requires the tutor to have subject knowledge, so expertise in the area being taught, evidence that they have that knowledge, that they have the knowledge required to deliver, whether that's a qualification, evidence of training, or years of experience in a given area. Do they have the resources necessary to deliver the training? Resources such as computer, correct software to deliver, a microphone that works, a webcam so that they can interact with the learners during delivery. Do they have an organised workstation, a comfortable chair, good internet access, and the course materials? Do they have the skills to deliver virtually? So our tutors have been given support and resources. They've been given the support during delivery, so that can include having a host that supports with IT issues and supports the learners with these, and course materials designed for virtual delivery, which incorporate the use of interactive virtual tools such as polling, Q&A, and breakout rooms for activities. Our tutors are trained on the new processes, procedures, such as the VILT delivery guidelines which we've developed. And they're trained on the delivery and on the virtual platform that they're using, and provided with guidance documents so that they can refer to these once they've received that training. SGS Lessons Learned. So we must adapt to change and embrace the new normal, as traditional classroom teaching methods just don't work for virtual delivery. What challenges did we face? An example, we had numerous courses scheduled for classroom delivery, and were still required to deliver these by our clients. We had to meet our clients' requirements by continuing to provide training of the highest quality standard. So we had to act fast. We had to redevelop our training from classroom training into that VILT delivery. We also initially found that our learners had difficulty accessing the training. So we had to develop instructions on how to access the virtual platform. So we gave our learners instructions on how to access the platform and how to use its tools. And we supported them throughout their training for any potential IT issues, so to ensure that the training runs smoothly. We also found that our tutors required the skills to deliver training. They may have had the skills and ability to deliver in a classroom environment, but we had to then upskill them into that delivery of a virtual training session. They needed the knowledge on virtual delivery methods, such as managing the virtual learning environment, presentation skills and questioning techniques which enhance the engagement of learners, and virtual tools of the platform and how they can support their delivery and enhance that interactivity within the training. So questions and considerations to ask yourself when planning to deliver learning virtually? 1. What are the capabilities of the virtual platform that you're using? How can you ensure that your learners feel engaged throughout the delivery? Are the sessions too long to maintain that learner engagement? And how have you adapted your teaching methods for virtual learning? And lastly, do the tutors have the skills required to deliver training virtually, or do you need to upskill them? So what we recommend as best practice: firstly, know your VILT platform. Learn how all the virtual tools work and adapt your delivery to utilize these. So think about the polling, the question and answers, the breakout rooms, maybe the whiteboard or interactive PowerPoints. How can you incorporate video and the interactive tools such as hand raise? And send instructions to your learners on how to use the platform, how to log in, how to use the tools, how to turn their webcam on and their microphone, or even just typing into the chat box. Upskill your tutors. Train them on the VILT platform. Provide training on the different VILT delivery methods, not just the platform, so to enhance their delivery. And provide clear processes and procedures for that virtual delivery. And lastly, pilot your courses. Run through the course first to make sure all of the delivery methods and activities work in the virtual platform. And if they don't, make changes to further enhance that delivery. Moving on to my last slide of the webinar. The Learning Reimagined VILT Mind Map. The Mind Map provides you with 6 key points to consider as you transition from classroom-based training to virtual instructor-led training. Point 1, the 6 E's. Start by using the 6 E's for VILT and use them to review the requirements for your business. Examine. So examine the impact of COVID on your business and stakeholders. Explore. Explore the digital learning options available to you and how you would adapt your training materials and requirements for your tutors. Ensure. Ensure that your stakeholders can access the training that they require and that they have the correct software and hardware that they need. Enable. Plan your transition to the new norm of VILT training. So plan. Identify who's responsible. Create training materials, processes and procedures. Monitor the progress of that transition and make changes if that's required. Establish. Establish clear guidelines for your stakeholders. Implement the new processes and procedures and the new VILT trainings. And finally, evaluate. Evaluate the performance and impact on your stakeholders and your business. Point 2, your audience. So identify your audience, consider their needs and classify their requirements. Do they know how to log into the training? Do they have any specific learning needs? How can you make sure that they feel supported during the training? And how can you ensure that they are engaged and motivated throughout? Point 3, technology. Identify what software and hardware is required for the VILT delivery. Consider which virtual tools will suit your requirements, the cost of those, and accessibility. Point 4, course resource development. So review your current training materials. Are they fit for purpose? Identify any changes that are required and incorporate guidance which includes the use of the virtual tools such as polling, Q&A, use of the whiteboard, videos and other interactive tools. Point 5, delivery. Pilot your training so you can iron out any problems with activities. Prepare for delivery by planning and organising the virtual classroom. You can do this by inserting your polling questions, uploading your training materials and the PowerPoint, sending instructions to your learners. Make sure the training is interactive and chunk content into bite-sized learning, and engage the learners using the virtual tools and allow them to take ownership of their own learning. And finally, point 6, training the virtual trainer. Upskill your trainers. Make sure that they have the knowledge in managing the learning environment. Those presentation skills and questioning techniques that enhance the engagement of learners, and knowledge on the virtual tools of the platform and how they can support their delivery. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to pass you back to Amanda for the conclusion of the webinar. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Laura. Hopefully, the last few slides have given you some food for thought and helped you with looking towards implementing your remote learning policy. If you need any support with any points mentioned during this presentation, please do not hesitate to contact us for a further discussion. We do have many years of training experience, from individual learning requirements through to global corporate organisation rollouts, providing one-off training courses through to blended solutions internally and externally in multiple languages. We deliver standard courses against many course categories within the majority of industries and have experience in working with clients to bespoke or tailor courses to meet their specific needs or industries. Thank you for listening. You can contact us on any of the addresses shown on this slide. We have received a number of questions during this presentation and unfortunately cannot answer all of them today. We have selected some that we feel would be beneficial to you now. We will answer all questions submitted and will include in a frequently asked question document.
Okay, so I'd like to follow up with some of the questions that we have received just throughout the presentation. So thank you for those that have asked the questions. One of the questions that has been asked is, are the 6 E's applicable to any delivery method? So in a short response, yes, they are. The 6 E's, so that's the examine, explore, ensure, enable, establish and evaluate, can be applied to any learning method. Some of you may remember that on our first webinar, when we talked about the new normal for learning, we talked about how these can be generically used as considerations for your learning development across the board. And Laura sort of talked about today how these can be adapted for virtual learning. So in our next webinar on e-learning, we'll then discuss the 6 E's again and how these can be applied within the e-learning design and delivery. I think Laura's got the next question.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. So the next question is, how do you ensure tutors have been upskilled? And is there a certificate provided to demonstrate the capabilities to deliver virtually? So here at SGS, we have an internal process for our SGS tutors, whereby they must take part in training, show evidence of this to our global training team, and then they receive a certificate of approval to deliver that virtual training. So we have quite a thorough process for our tutors.
Okay,
Amanda, I think you've got the next question.
Yes, I have. Another question that came in, how many virtual instructor-led training sessions do you recommend per day to ensure learners are keeping the focus? I think looking at this from a slightly different perspective, I think it's advisable to think about virtual sessions as singular pieces of learning. So a session could be a bite-sized piece, say of 5 to 10 minutes. through to maybe a more in-depth training of a course that could be 2.5 to 3 hours, but that would include necessary breaks, activities, engagement checks, etc. So dependent on the length of your sessions, really, the needs of your learners and the specific content that you're delivering, you would then make that decision based on the required outcomes. So, for example, our 5-day lead auditor courses that were originally 5-day classroom face-to-face courses, we've converted them into 10 individual sessions. The sessions are around about, say, 2.5 to 3 hours, but these can be run as 2 sessions a day, or 1 session a day over 10 days, or even 2 sessions a week over 5 weeks. So it's really a business decision and entirely up to you and the learner's requirements and the resource availability, which is another key factor to think about as to how you would make your virtual learning work. I hope that answers the question. I'll pass you back to Laura now, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've got another question here. It says, can you please explain which instructions are needed and are provided to learners prior to delivery? Okay, so generally what we do at SGS, I'd recommend that they have basic joining instructions, so which include date and time of the Virtual Instructor Led courses, as well as information on how to access the virtual platform, what to expect from that training, and also what their responsibilities would be. In some of our countries, we offer pilot courses to make sure that the learners can access the VILT training and use the tools to iron out any technical issues prior to the actual training that they are undertaking. I've got another question here. From your experience delivering VILT, which are the most engaging activities? Okay. So I would say, one of the best experiences that I've had when being part of a VILT training course was when the tutor and the host were actually able to work together. They created an open dialogue between themselves and the learners, and they were able to have simple discussions, which on a webinar would be normally an explanation maybe of a topic. But instead they were able to have a discussion and throughout pose questions to the learners so that they were able to actually engage with that content. I just feel as though it added a lot more value to the content and really made it more learner-led opposed to tutor-led delivery. And for me, this definitely has enhanced the experience and made it feel as though I was directly involved as a learner. It just shows the importance of the tutor knowing the virtual tool and how they can actually impact the success of the training. And then I've got one final question here. So a VILT course can be also recorded and assessed after. That's a really good question, actually. So this is going to depend on the platform that you use. Most VILT platforms, such as Adobe Connect, Microsoft Teams and Zoom, they do have the capability to record. However, it's important to note that that may actually incur additional charges, and so I'd actually recommend that you review this when you decide on what platform you're going to use.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. We have had some other questions that are more specific to those businesses. So what we'll do, if that's okay, is we will reach out to you directly to be able to answer any specific questions. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you virtually or hearing from you on our next e-learning webinar. And have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much.